Well, hey guys, welcome to another video. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Thanks for taking time out of your day to jump in with this video. I've been away for a couple of days. I was out doing a couple of days of coaching with the church on site, which was super fun. My first flight in about 7 months. So super excited to get back on a plane. Obviously, masks, social distancing, the whole deal was pretty cool. But in this video, I want to talk about something that we spent some time on while I was there coaching with this group, clarifying accountability structures. Okay. And so depending on what denomination you're in or non-denominational, just church structure, or even in your business, you might have some different layers of accountability that you have reporting to. So in a lot of denominations, they have elders, deacons, direct reports outside. A lot of denominations, they'll have multi-site churches, for example, not even denominations, but multi-site churches will have straight lines, dotted lines, all these kinds of things. And so let me show you just a couple of them. So, for example, multi-site churches will often have so that right here, oh, it's hard to see with the camera there. Sorry, with the light there. Let me turn it a little bit. There you go. So, for example, if this is the person, say you're a youth pastor, kids pastor, something like that. So let's put youth pastor here, right? You might have a straight line to a campus pastor, right? So maybe they're at a second campus and they have a direct line to that campus pastor, but then they have a dotted line over here to say like a global youth pastor, right? So straight line for those kind of things, dotted line to the global youth pastor. So that's a pretty common multi-site strategy for accountability, would be to have those two. And then there are some denominations, for example, that have more lay leadership involved in the accountability structure. So it might look like this. That might be the direct report. So that could be maybe a supervisor that's on staff full time. And then you might have a deacon, right? So somebody that is, again, a lay leader that's involved in the church. And then you might even have an elder. So another layer of lay leadership. And then another layer would be like the senior pastor or the lead pastor, right? Because at some point, even in this structure, the lead pastor is always going to be in there at some point, right? That's kind of like a faint dotted line, right? So I'll just do kind of a faint dotted line there. Okay, so I'd say the lead pastor, senior pastor, is going to always be involved at some level, right? Because they're even above this campus pastor. So at some level, they don't have a direct, but they're going to have some kind of reporting too. So something like that would be in multi-site, probably something like that, right? In this case, this is going to be a fairly common as well. So here are kind of two really common when you have multiple layers of accountability, right? If you're in maybe a church of a few hundred, you might have the more typical, which would just be lead pastor and say the youth pastor, right? So that's going to be probably a lot of people have direct accountability to the lead pastor. But when we start getting into multiple layers of accountability, I think it's really, really important that we look at these two right here, which are probably, from my estimation, probably the most common direct report, multiple layers of direct report right here. Okay. And so one thing that I would say is that's really, really, really important that when you have these multiple layers of accountability, that you really define what each person is responsible for. Okay. So I've even seen, um, that. So they had a second dotted line to a ministries pastor. Okay. So the ministries pastor, again, global, this is multi-site. They had a pastor that was over all the ministries, all the ministry pastors. They had a global campus youth pastor, and they had their individual campus pastor, right? So this person would have 3 reports, 2 dotted, 1 solid. This person over here has essentially 4 reports. Okay. And so, what are all these people doing, and how's that all going to work? And so, when there's not a lot of clarity on these, and this is what I spend a lot of time really clarifying when I'm going in to do coaching or when I'm going in to do a search with a church, and I see these types of things, I really want to dive in and make sure that we begin to get really clear who does what. And there's a couple reasons why that I want to do that. The first one is this: as a pastor, I've always been concerned when people start saying, I attend 2 churches, I attend 2 youth ministries, I attend whatever. Because what happens is when that happens is that one pastor knows that you're attending another church, right? So let's say you're attending my student ministries and you're attending another student ministries. Well, I might be thinking, man, I'm not really close to this person, but I'm assuming that they're going to be close to that youth pastor, right? And that youth pastor might be like, well, they're not really close to me, but I'm assuming that they're close to me, the other guy, right? And so what happens is we're not really talking to each other, and we're kind of assuming that this person in the middle here is being discipled, being cared for, being pastored by somebody else. And that's the exact concern here when we start getting into multiple layers of accountability. Now, I'm for multiple layers of accountability. I think it's great. I think it's helpful. So please hear me that I'm not saying that this is bad, that you shouldn't do this. Especially when you start scaling multi-site, scaling, thousands of people, you've got to have some layers here, right? And especially when you're in denominations that have stronger lay leadership, these things are more important as well. So again, do this if this is part of where you're at, what you need in terms of your leadership here, okay, to scale. So let's just talk about it. So what we did is, for example, multiple times when I've gone in and see these kinds of things, I really try to spend some time to dive in and say, okay, let's not have all 4 of these people assuming that other people are doing other things, and let's make sure that the pastor, the youth pastor, kids pastor, small groups pastor, whatever it is, they're not confused as to who to talk to about what, right? And so, for example, I'll just talk to you a little bit about this structure. So with this church I was working with, what we ended up finding out was, they were doing a good job of communicating it. We just fine-tuned to make sure we were crystal clear. And we're going to put it in writing, and we're going to make sure that everyone's agreeing on it, that everyone understands, okay, here's my roles, here's my line of communication, all that kind of stuff, so everyone's just crystal clear on it, okay? So we found out with this direct report, okay, this was another person on staff at this church, and what we said is, okay, this person is the person that is meeting with them every week. How are you doing? How are things going? More of job performance type stuff, a big encourager to say, hey, here's going on. Ministry strategy, hey, how you do this. If they're having issues with how to do something, they're going to go to this person pretty quickly, okay, because they're meeting with them on a weekly basis to turn in reports, right? Reporting doc, attendance, baptisms, whatever those important things are, right? They're turning those in to that person. Now, they have a deacon here, right? Now, what in their structure, they have deacons that are assigned to every ministry, that those ministry leaders can talk with and feel like they have support from the board. Okay. And so, for example, in this case, I was working with some youth pastors. And so for them, they had a deacon that is assigned to their ministry, and that part of that deacon's responsibility is that they are fairly committed to that ministry. And so in this case, this person is a leader in that ministry, so they kind of have an idea of what's going on. They've got a good pulse on the ministry. So how we defined that is a big part of their job was just to make sure that these youth pastors are doctrinally sound. The youth ministry is not going, rogue, doing something crazy, that kind of stuff. They're kind of eyes on it, right? Plus, this person is able to be the representation to the board. This is important. They are the representation to the board when there's like major needs. Hey, our soundboard blew up. We need a new soundboard. Hey, our bus is breaking down. We need a new bus. All those types of things. That's going to go to their deacon. They're going to talk to the deacon. The deacon's going to evaluate it, and they will bring that to the board. Now, so for example, if we're talking to the direct report about, hey, my soundboard's breaking. Hey, my bus is breaking down. They're going to say, hey, we need to bring in the deacon in order to help us with that scenario. Let's talk about that, right? Then they've got an elder. Okay, again, this is another lay leadership role, right? So an elder, that elder's role is there for spiritual and soul care. Okay, spiritual and soul care. So they're going to be meeting with them maybe quarterly. Okay, and just checking in. How are you doing with your prayer life? How's your finances? How's your marriage? Those types of things. Not so much in the weeds about the youth ministry, not so much in the weeds about job performance, all that kind of stuff. How is your soul? How is your marriage? How are your finances? How's your prayer life? All of those types of questions is going to be coming through this elder. So if this youth pastor in this case is feeling tired, feeling just kind of low, lethargical, feeling my prayer life's just not there, they're going to be able to go to this elder and talk to them and say, hey, man, can we just get lunch? Can we go? I just want to talk to you, man. Just my prayer life's a little bit down. They know they can go there. If their soundboard's breaking, their bus is breaking, they've got a major expense coming up, they're going to talk to this deacon, right? Their daily, weekly ministry type stuff, they're going to go to this direct report. Now, the senior pastor, is available just for a drop-in. Hey, how's it going? This senior pastor is responsible for mission alignment, right? Hey, this is where we're going as a church. This is what we're going after. This is our vision. This is where we're going. He's casting all that kind of stuff. And the lead pastor really is not there for all of these other things. He's available, but he's not responsible. So again, he's available, but he's not responsible. Now, ultimately, obviously he is, but he's leaning in on all of these people to help him accomplish that. So he's not the only one responsible for job performance, spiritual development, financial development, major needs, representing the board, all that kind of stuff is not all leaning on just this senior pastor. He's got all these other people that are involved in helping lead all of that. Okay. So again, in a multi-site structure, you might have something similar. You might have not designated as deacon elders. You might have it designated as a ministry pastor or a campus pastor or a global youth pastor, something like that. You might have these types of things labeled differently, but ultimately that's what you're trying to do, is define those lines of communication and to say, okay, who's responsible for job performance? Is it the campus pastor? Is it the direct report? Who's responsible for soul care? Is it the ministries pastor? Is it the elder? Who's responsible for major budgeting issues? Is it the deacon? Is it the global youth pastor? Is it the campus pastor? Who is it? What is it? Who's responsible to be in the ministry, making sure that the teachings aren't going crazy? Who's in the ministry, making sure that they're not going rogue on the direction where they're going? Who is it that's in there? And when that person, that staff member that needs help, for example, in this case, the youth pastor, who do they go for what type of issues? And again, in these types of structures, what you have hopefully is some things where, for example, In this case, the elder, and in this case, the ministry pastor, those two were responsible for kind of soul care type things. And so it was known that they could go to them when they're just kind of feeling down a little bit on their spiritual life. They're just not quite feeling it. They could safely go to them in those meetings. Maybe their ministry or their marriage is just kind of, not about to end, but they're just kind of having some tough times. They could safely go to them and feel like, hey, this isn't going to cost me my job. Obviously, if there's infidelity, there's things like that. Obviously, even those guys are going to kind of push it down into more accountability. But when you have multiple layers of accountability, again, a campus, multi-site campus strategy, a single location strategy with just more lay leadership involvement, you want to crystal clear those lines of responsibilities. This is who's responsible for this. This is who you go to in these scenarios and what they're responsible for, to make sure. And it's also important that all of these people, these 4 people, or at least these 3 people, and in this case, these 3 people, are getting together every once in a while to begin to say, okay, how are things going? Are we all saying the same thing? Hey, are we all going after the same thing with that ministry? Because it's easy for all of a sudden they don't know exactly where they're going. And one person saying, man, they're awesome. They're doing great. Man, they're so healthy. Man, they're strong. And the other person's saying, man, they're struggling right now, but they're not talking. They don't really know, right? So it's important that all those people are talking together as well to make sure that we are leading that person into the right direction. So again, multiple layers of accountability. Make sure you're defining exactly what those roles are so that everyone's clear, to make sure that everything's being taken care of, right? Someone's got to be responsible for job performance. Someone's got to be responsible for development. Someone's got to be responsible for budgetary and financial issues and reporting to the board. Someone's got to be responsible for soul care. Somebody's got to be responsible for these things. Who is it, and who do they go to for those things? So, guys, hopefully this video has been helpful. Look forward to talking to you guys soon here real quick.